Now call for Stojr Shelf. Let's see what comes in today from in-stock trades. 2 trade paperbacks to go up on the shelf. First is a Epic Collection to Dare the Daredevil. Daredevil Volume 8 from 1978 to 1981. And Batman Red Skies from 1985 to 1986. Give you a little bit of an in-depth preview of both of these issues. Daredevil Epic covers the beginning of the Frank Miller era of Daredevil. This is an era that's also covered in Daredevil Visionaries, Volumes 1, 2, and I believe there's a Volume 3, but I only have Volumes 1 and 2. And this epic covers all of Volume 1 and part of the Volume 2 there. I'll show you what's in there in just a moment. This covers issues from 155 to 176, so it does not skip 1 or 2 of the fill-in issues that the Omnibus and the Visionaries collection skipped, because those were creator-centric books, and they only had the issues that were covered in that particular book. Flipping through this a bit, this is going to have some writing and artwork by other artists. I'm starting off with Mackenzie and Robbings on pencils, and going through some Gene Colan art, and then leading up to issue 158, where Frank Miller takes over on penciling duties, but not on the actual writing duties yet. That'll come a couple issues later. And what I want to show you a little bit here is some of the difference in the coloring and the way that this stuff is printed. So as I understand it, they went back to the original coloring, obviously cleaned up from the Masterworks or the Omnibus, but not enhanced colors. Over here on the left here, you'll see the new version of the Epic Collection, and see how the colors will look a little bit more natural, the way they were presented back then. They're a lot darker over here on the other issue, the other printing. Let me see if I can find some better pages here. Here you can see some fighting with Bullseye, where the colors on the right in the Visionaries volume were a lot darker, almost like they were covering up some of the penciling in the way that they tried to restore it. The ones on the left are a little bit lighter. They're closer to the way the issue was presented back then. To me, I don't see a huge problem with either one. I think I prefer, in this case, the one on the left. If I ever do a deep dive of the Walt Simonson Omnibus for Thor, I actually prefer the updated colors, but I think this is a case where they tried to make some adjustments to the colors, and it wasn't for the better in here. It was better in the older version. So there's also a crossover or guest starring the Hulk in here. So we have, the sort of slanted covers here in this Visionaries version, but in the Epic Collection, they're showing the full covers. And let me get to the Hulk reveal. Different pages here, left and right, but you can see a little bit of a difference there in the way that things are colored and set up there. And I mentioned that in here was a fill-in issue, issue number 162, that was not in the Visionaries book. And this was actually drawn by Steve Ditko of Spider-Man fame and many other things. But this is just sort of a one-off issue that he drew, and this was before Frank Miller took over on writing duties, I believe. Flipping through the book, I think 168 is when Frank takes over as writer and artist and does everything together. He was co-writing some issues before this, and some great stories in here. A lot of things that were adapted in the TV show, as well as the movies. And you have Elektra guest starring in these issues, and Bullseye as a villain. And really, I listened to Omar's on Near Mint Conditions podcast. He had a video come out today, and he was pointing out that the Kingpin was not really a Daredevil villain at all before Frank Miller brought him in on these particular issues. In the back of the book, we have, I'm also interested here, they mentioned gang war. I wonder if this has anything to do with the Spider-Man gang war, or if they just kind of use the same term over and over. There was obviously a recent Spider-Man gang war in Volume 6 of Amazing Spider-Man, but back in the 80s, there was a gang war during, I think, the Roger Stern era, or right after that. Back of the book, looking for some extras here. Flipping through some of these pages, you get some content from this Bizarre Adventures book, just some black and white things with Elektra, some original art, some scripts, how sad, some stuff from the calendar from that year, and a great Spider-Man and Daredevil pin-up by Frank Miller. And there's the original cover of the Visionaries book that I have here. And then the second book that I have, which covers 168 to 182, this book stops at 176, so epic number 9. And it's interesting because Marvel has really kind of saved the best for last for a lot of its epic lines, and held off on using the big creator omnibuses. But this year, they're really kind of diving into that. They've gotten to the point where they have to leverage those particular issues. That's Frank Miller on Daredevil. That's Walter Simonson on Thor, which was coming out next year. That's John Byrne on Fantastic Four, and Roger Stern on Amazing Spider-Man. Those are the big ones that you could only find in omnibus, and the Epic Collections kind of skipped around and waited on. Second book to showcase here is Batman Red Skies. Red Skies indicates the skies that went across all the DC books apparently right before Crisis on Infinite Earths. Really looking forward to the Crisis on Infinite Earths DC Finest collection. It's going to cover all of the kind of crossover issues as well as the main series. I actually have Crisis on Infinite Earths in 2 or 3 different formats that I picked up used over the years. But I'm going to rebuy that because I never have read any of the DC books that were around during that era. And here's the DC Finest collection. These are in order, although the DC Finest will skip around, similar to the Epic collections. In the case of Batman, they've released these technically out of order, but now that all 3 of these are released, these are concurrent issues here. So Red Skies will take care of Batman 388 to 400, and Detective Comics 554 to 567, interweaving between them as needed. This picks up in 401 to 412 and Detective Comics 568 to 579, with the last version of The Killing Joke and Other Stories, 413 to 422, and Detective Comics 580 to 589. There is at least 2 more announced at this point. There's the volume that will follow this and start with 590 for Detective Comics, and I believe go up to 600 or 599, and start with the issue 423 of Batman. That has been announced, and there's also the first volume of Batman from 1938 has also been announced, similar to the first volume of Superman. A lot of Batman books to kind of fill up the shelf. DC Finest, DC is pretty obviously trying to undercut Marvel here with pricing. These are cover price of $39.99. They have somewhere in the neighborhood between 500 and 650 pages. The exact page count can be found online, but they are thick, big boys. They can be found release week on in-stock trades at a deep discount. I think DC has a deal with them. So I picked up each of these for about $18 each on release week. And then they go up to about $23, $24 on discount from in-stock trades. But depending on how much you're buying, you still got to pay shipping. Other retailers have various sales. So check out Cheap Graphic Novels, in-stock trades, panel-bound books, panel-bound comics rather. If you want to roll the dice and look at Amazon on what they have, and half-price books, eBay, but don't sleep on your local comic shop. Get outside, take a look at that stuff. These are books that I've never, ever looked at before, these earlier pre-crisis Batman issues. And from what I understand, a lot of this has not been collected. And it's fitting that this came out the same time as the Daredevil book, because Klaus Johnson is penciling and inking in both of these books. I think he inks, just listed as artist there. Yeah, so I think he's doing both. And I believe Gene Colan, I think this is him here, is also doing an issue here in Batman. Yep. So there is, there's some common artists here, even though these books are about 5 or 6 years apart from when they were published. So you have Catwoman in her pre-crisis costume. You have the Jason Todd Robin in here. And a lot of good stories that I'm looking forward to going through and reading. Here's those red skies that the book gets its cover from. This is coming up on Crisis on Infinite Earths. And as you go through here, you got Bullock, you got Jim Gordon. Canary is in the first issue, I think, is her debut, the new Black Canary. So she finds her way over into Justice League and Justice League International that I'm reading from the late 80s. And not much in the way of extras in these DC Finest books, but the amount of pages that they're giving you, I think we'll forgive them. You got some Two-Face in there. And but in this particular book, because it did cover, I think it was Batman 400, if I remember correctly. Yes. There's a couple of pinups in the back. Some great rotating artists doing different sections of the Batman 400 in here. And in the very back, there's only about 3 or 4 pages. But you have some Bill Sienkiewicz cover of Batman 400, Steve Rude, Mike Grell, and that's about it. So just a couple of things there. Batman Red Skies